first reading today is from the first book of Kings, and we hear from the great prophet Elijah. And just like so many of us in our lives, especially when we're discerning our vocation, he's waiting for God to pass by. He's waiting to hear the voice of God in his life. And the story goes, there is this powerful wind that crushes rocks and rends mountains, but God's voice is not in the wind. Then there's a tremendous earthquake that shakes the ground, but God's voice is not in the earthquake. Then there's this fire, this powerful, intense fire, but God's voice is not in the fire. God's voice comes after those three things in a tiny, whispering sound. And that's such a profound insight for all of us to realize as we're trying to figure out where God's calling us to. You know, our lives get complicated. We make our lives complicated. And so we think God's got to be complicated. And the way God speaks to us has to be complicated and big and impressive and gaudy. But the reality is, we're the ones that make things complicated, not God. God is found in divine simplicity. And the voice of God is found quite simply in that whisper within our hearts. It's almost intuitive the way God calls us. So the advice we hear from that great prophet who did so many mighty things is not always to look for God in the big and the showy and the complicated parts of our life, but to find God by embracing simplicity and silence and listening for that tiny whispering voice that can be found in each of our hearts when we listen.